Good evening and welcome to episode 81. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough here tonight and of the late night veteran show. And before I move any further, wherever you are, make sure you're keeping up the hydration because it is extremely hot and we know what extreme dehydration can do. But before I go any further, I'm going to hand you over to our host, Darren Edmundson, who's going to give updates on a few things. You know what you're saying.
Okay, guys. Welcome to the Late Night Veteran Show. This is episode 81 with very special guest, Amanda Askew, which is Nadine Askew's mother, and Mel, who served with Nadine. So I'm just going to give you a couple of updates on the Late Night Veteran Show. We're going really well. We're going really strong. We're in the process of getting funding for a PTSD camp in Pembrokeshire in Wales. We've got some funding coming in for that. We've got a couple of events that me and Adam are going to go to and raise money for that as well. We are growing massively. We have been approved by the Armed Forces Covenant, which is absolutely huge. We're doing really well on that. And we've also been approved by the Veterans World magazine. We're going strong. We're getting stronger and stronger. We've only been going just over 2 years and we are flying. So thank you to everybody that's supporting us, that supports Adam, supports the whole team, all the CEOs. We've actually reached worldwide. I want to give a big shout out to the CEO in America, Jerry McKinnon. Thank you for all his work and his team that do in America. And also a big shout out to Reginald Argue and Lisa Argue, which is the CEO World Liaison Officer for the Late Night Veteran Show in Canada. We are looking for ambassadors all around the world and CEOs from different countries. So if you're interested, please give us a shout. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe. Adam, the show is yours.
Great stuff, Darren. And I'm honoured to be here with a very special guest tonight, Amanda Askew, mother of Nadine Askew, and also a lady who served with Nadine, which is Mel here in the bottom right left-hand corner, who was going to say a few words, I'm sure. So I appreciate, Amanda, this is a very touching subject, very tender subject for you. Would you like to start off? I was with British Army Trauma Unit for a while, and I've met many relatives of bereaved, but everyone deals with it in their own way. Some people take adversity better than others. Would you like to tell us, the audience, but for the audience and benefit, what happened and how you dealt with it, please?
Well, I was on holiday with my partner, and we were down in Wales, and I got a phone call 23 minutes past 8 o'clock at night by the British Army saying Nadine had passed away. Previous to that, it's a good job I didn't look on Facebook because it was all over Facebook by 2 o'clock. I have an older boy that is a servant soldier with 1st Royal Artillery. I had his number, had his name, didn't inform Ross. Yet Ross at 5 o'clock on an afternoon was getting text messages saying sorry for your loss. That is Nadine's brother.
I see. Great. And as I say, we all deal with these things in our own way. No doubt it's been an emotional roller coaster for you. Were you able to share the experience with anyone particular? Obviously, Mel here, that have been very supportive to you?
It's been Nadine's old regiment friends from Germany. It's been our old friends that's been with us, helped us out. Let's be honest, I don't know anything about the army. They've helped us with questions, what to ask for. You know, you wouldn't like anybody else to go through what you're going through if you're not in the military and you don't know what to ask for at the end of the day. They closed ranks on us.
Really?
What a shambles! You wouldn't think the British Army would lie to you.
I'm so sorry.
Not when you've had 2 servant soldiers, both done tours of Afghanistan, tours of Iraq. You know, she was a fabulous soldier. She was one of the youngest females to be sent out into Iraq. She turned 18 in the June and she was shipped out a few weeks later.
Right. Sorry, Amanda, very quickly. Can you hear me, Darren?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Your camera's just gone off, mate. That's all.
I don't know what's happened here. Sorry about this.
Jump off. I'll add you back in. If you jump off, come out and come back in. I'll take over, and then I'll add you back in.
Okay, sorry about this. Never trust anything technical, as they say.
No.
So, bear with me. I'm going to come off and come back.
So firstly, I'm very sorry for your loss and the way you were treated by the British Army. I think it's absolutely wrong. If you don't mind me asking, obviously I know, but how long? So for the viewers, how long did Nadine serve for?
Nadine joined in 2007.
2007.
January the 14th, 2007.
And she said she served in Afghanistan, yeah?
Yes, Afghanistan, Iraq, and she done a peace tour in Estonia.
Wow.
And but she went all over with the British Army. She went all over on exercise, Canada, everywhere with them, you know. She wasn't afraid to get mugged in, and she was a #1 gunner.
Okay, Adam, sorry, guys.
I'm so sorry about this, Amanda. As I say, in the army, we always said never trust anything mechanical or technical, and it looks like we're having problems already. The microphone's cut me off. I don't know why. I'm trying to get this sorted out, but
this does usually happen, Adam. I will say, when there's a big story and the people want to try and shut us down, this does tend to happen. They try to block people off. Yeah,
that is cruel.
So we just want the truth out there. We want the people to share their story and stuff like that.
But you can hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah, all loud and clear. If you want to carry on asking questions, Adam,
we'll do. Yeah, and just for the audience point of view, Amanda, how long ago are we talking about now when this happened, when you first got the news?
It's Nadine's memory. Nadine passed away on the 22nd of July 2021, so it'll be Nadine's memory next month on the 22nd. Oh. Nadine was also acting Troop Sergeant Major when she passed away. Yet the army didn't tell me until the inquest. The army kept that from me for 4.5 years.
Good. So the Army Welfare Association weren't in any way helpful at all?
No.
That is appalling.
The army said she was on the vulnerable risk management course. Yet when I got to the inquest, the army said she wasn't on the vulnerable management risk course.
Right. So it went to coroners, I take it, at coroner's court?
It took 4 years, over 4 years to get to the coroner's court.
And was that a military coroner's court or was that a civilian one?
It was a civilian coroner court. The coroner put it down to suicide, yet the army, on the final day of the inquest, the army wanted Nadine's death to go down as misadventure or accidental death.
Yeah. Sounds like a repeat.
And we didn't find that out until May the 7th, when we went to our final inquest of the coroner to decide to make his mind up.
I'm so sorry. I mean, we talk about being professional and everything. I'm a qualified person myself, but it's just, if they talk about this thing called transparency, if there is no transparency, if you as closest relative aren't privy to personal information, how can that make you possibly feel better? You know, it's I can't say how sorry I am for what happened, Amanda. So after the coroner's court, did you have any satisfaction at all?
I'm going to be open and I'm going to be honest with you. No, because the coroner didn't read out on a lot of things. So I'll start off with the police. The police DCI that investigated Nadine's death spent an hour in Nadine's room because the army had said she was on the vulnerable risk management course.
Right.
Then the police, the DCI, gives our visiting officer a statement, and in his statement he states Nadine was took to her room by 2 bombardiers because there'd been an altercation and she was upset. They stopped with Nadine from 1 till 3, and then the duty sergeant come in between 3 and 4, the Ross, checked on Nadine, put it in his report book that she was fine. Now, when I got to court, the DCI withdrew that statement, bearing in mind he'd already give that to the coroner so there could be an autopsy on Nadine.
Right. And did they at any time?
Happen.
Right. I'm sorry to hear that. Did they at any time tell you that you, as nearest relative, could possibly take out a civil action against the army for what happened?
This hasn't got nothing to do with civil action or suing the army. This is about the truth and how my daughter lost her life.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. And the thing is, it doesn't help anyone, does it? Because all you want to know is the truth, the absolute truth of what happened, to put your mind at rest. And, you know, I know from working in the NHS over the years, prison service, there can be sometimes a culture of arse covering gone mad, and people do, as you say, they close ranks. And as a result, they get very, very paranoid. And so the victim is people like yourself who just want to know the truth about what happened. It's just appalling.
Then I start asking questions after I'd buried Nadine. And one young man who was at the pub with Nadine that night. Have we gone off? He was at the pub with Nadine that night. He was one of the guys, because there was 3 guys, trying to get him off Nadine. This other guy who had Nadine in a chokehold had messaged me privately on the 15th of September, where he states it was never meant to happen. He was never meant to put her in the chokehold. Now, everybody said he didn't put her in a chokehold. So you've got one guy holding my daughter by a chokehold. You've got 3 guys trying to get him off Nadine. Then you've got the sergeant shouting, let her go, she's not moving.
Right.
Who was on duty that night. He still wouldn't let go of her, and he dragged her 40 to 50 yards. It states her head had fell forward, her arms had gave way, and her legs had gave way. And she still wouldn't let go. It then takes another guy to put him in a chokehold to release my daughter, and then the 3 of them all fall on top of my daughter. The same guy states in his statement that he was left lying on the ground for half an hour.
Good grief. And is there, like, there's usually a prelude to something like this happening? I mean, tell me if it's none of my business. Did Nadine have like existing mental health issues prior to this? Was there a catalyst to started this happening?
Don't get me wrong, there'd been an altercation that night. She had hit somebody. She had headbutted somebody. But then this year she hit him 4 to 5 times. There was not one bruise on her hand. There was not one nail broken. You're talking about an 18-year-old boy that she'd hit. And he'd been on the drink all day, mind, and it states in his statement, he'd been on the drink all day with his Captain Morgan and his lager. And he stood with his hands down by his side, and he didn't retaliate. Now, you tell me if an 18-year-old boy has been on the drink all day, put his hands down by his side and not retaliated.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That is amazing. No, and sorry, the coroner said misadventure for something like this. Misadventure. I mean, that is.
No, the coroner's put it down as suicide. The army wanted Nadine's death to go as misadventure or accidental death.
Wow.
Yeah. Because when I was at Catterick in 1981, I can tell you that part of the army training, we had one guy there who'd done time in the detention centre, and he was more clued up to cope with the BS, as they say. But for a lot of people with the army training, it tries to break you. And if they don't do proper psychological profiling on people, it can sometimes push people to the limit where it has an adverse effect on their behaviour. And I blame, in many ways, the army for this. I say, what can I say? I'm just so sorry it happened. And would you say, and it happened as well at a time when we were in lockdown, weren't we? It was in lockdown. So that must have made it more isolationist for you, and a very weird time for something like this to happen. Do you think the COVID lockdowns played any part at all?
Well, myself and my partner worked through lockdown. I worked for the NHS, and my partner had to work through lockdown as well. You know, so I worked in the NHS, and I actually seen what went down. But it's supposed to be the army. It's supposed to be a community. What happens when you go to war? Who's going to have your back? Are you going to have this person's back because you've had an argument? It's supposed to be a community. They're supposed to be out looking after each other.
Yeah.
Whether it's lockdown or anything. He shouldn't have put his hands on a female high rank than him, and he was acting as troop sergeant major. He shouldn't have done that.
No, absolutely not. Adam, sorry to interrupt. We're going to try and get Adam back on fully. We're going to have a 3-minute break. We're going to play music in the background and have you on. Just going to sort out. Just stay where you are, if that's okay. I'm just going to play this song. Adam, if you drop out and come back in.
Yeah, we'll do, Darren.
Give me 3 minutes.
I'm still haunted by the faces carried in my mind through the years. I picture some with smiles, others covered in blood and tears. Still have flashbacks of the dog tags hanging from the battlefield cross, where we said our final goodbyes as the chaplain preached about loss. I've carried flag-draped caskets and presented flags to next of kin, wives struggling to accept, mothers wiping tears, and fathers left broken. Daughters missing their daddies, and sons trying to act brave as they watch their father lowered into the grave. Brothers in arms paying respect with survivor's guilt inside, asking why their brother was gone while somehow they survived. They carry the load, we carry their honor, we carry their pain. We stand for the fallen, so their legacy remains. Remember their lives, tell their stories, hold up their pictures, speak their names, let the whole world know their sacrifice was not in vain. Carry the load. Some were living heroes to the men they knew, displayed a type of courage under fire that few men do. But home brought a silence more crushing than war. The brotherhood they leaned on wasn't there anymore. They smiled on the outside, held steady and strong, but invisible wounds were bleeding their soul all along. Some lost a battle with no warning we could find, left us wondering how we could have fixed what broke inside, and questioning how we lost another loved one to war, long after our fight was supposed to be over and paid for.
Hiya guys, sorry about that. Adam's just come back on now.
Yeah,
He's back in. We're in. We've had a couple of people trying to shut us down, guys, for sharing this story. I've been checking the internet and the back. They've been trying to shut us down, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to let you share your story. Carry on. Let the story be told.
So sorry about that, Amanda. I say these things happen, and I don't know. There's obviously some fifth column, as Darren says here, but yeah. And in the, what is it now, 6 years since you lost Nadine? Would you say, was it 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they
5
say,
years. 5 years next month.
from my experience, they say the average bereavement process takes about 7 years. Have you? Is your mind more at rest? Was it there? Or is there anything now the army could or should tell you to help you?
Do you know what? No, and I'm going to be open and honest. When you go to the coroner's court and it's took so long, it's like losing that all over again.
Yeah.
So it was like an open wound restarting up again, you know. And what did I expect from the coroners? I expected the truth, you know. I expected people to be open and honest, and when our barrister asked questions, all we got was, I cannot remember. I cannot remember. I cannot remember.
Yeah.
In court. Yeah.
So sorry.
I will share one bit of information with you all. Somebody had gone into Nadine's room that morning and used Nadine's phone, and it wasn't Nadine. Nadine had passed away.
Right. I'm so sorry.
Somebody had sent a text message and gone in to pick Nadine's phone up that morning and replied to it. It couldn't have been Nadine.
Yeah.
You know, Nadine's phone was frozen in time because I didn't get that back until after the inquest. Her phone, her laptop, and her Apple Watch. Right. They were all frozen in time.
Right.
It's quite interesting what I found on her phone, actually.
Yeah.
Guys, I've just been given the heads up. The story's okay to go ahead. Absolutely fine. I think people are trying to shut us down. Nothing's been spoken out of content. Nothing's been unthing, so we can carry on with the show. Sorry for the interruption.
Sure, I apologise for losing contact there, and apologise for the cough I've got as well. It's always something in life, but it's like with the tragedy that happened on the Brecon Beacons a few years ago, Amanda. I mean, another terrible situation for relatives. Do you think? Obviously, I think the Army Welfare Association, Army psychologists, because the thing with being a soldier is they push you to the limit and beyond, and they expect you to cope with the most adverse situations possibly you can imagine. And I'm sorry, but it's only human that some people are going to break at some point in time. Do you think that if anything could be a lasting tribute to Nadine, could it be that the Army Welfare Association or Army psychiatrists play a greater role in monitoring people's behaviour, looking for certain signs?
I think it's still a man's world in the army. I really do. Nadine looked after a lot of females that went to Nadine, and you know, don't get me wrong, she wasn't soft. She wasn't afraid to stand her ground. It didn't matter what rank. You know, if they were doing something wrong, she would tell them that they were doing something wrong. Basically, she was a very strong, independent female, you know. But I don't know the army life, so I don't know if Mel would like to answer that question. But I don't know what goes on in the army, you know.
Would you like to come in there, Mel? Would you like to add anything there, please? I think you're muted at the moment, Mel. Is there anything you'd like to add to Amanda's story? Maybe she's muted, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, in my experience, we had a few females with us. One of them, won't mention any names. We was all men, as I said. In my regiment, it was all men, and they said a lady was going to come, but the lady who joined us, look, she had quite masculine quality, but for that reason, they gave her a terrible time. And a couple of other ladies we had when we was doing some exercise. I'm not being sexist or anything like that, but they did turn on the waterworks a little bit quicker than a man would. As I say, females wouldn't be females, and if they didn't have certain attributes, and we wouldn't be men because we've got certain attributes as well. So we're only talking about human nature here as well. Do you think also, was it a male? Were males with females all the time? Did that play a part in it? Do you think the fact that the sexes were mixing?
Do you know what? Somebody said at the inquest that she didn't like men. Yet you've got a female soldier teaching group of men. She's a number one gunner. She's the only female in the gun. She had more male friends than female friends, believe it or not. And yet this so-called person who said was a friend said she was angry and she didn't like men. When she was in Afghan, she went with a group of guys because she was a female searcher. So she had to be out with the guys. You know, they looked after her. You know, she wasn't shy coming forward because I got a beautiful letter after she come back from Afghan and said what an amazing soldier she was. She was always there. She would always have your back. He said she done the job better than most men done. He said he would have had her any day in his regiment. So she, you know, for mental health problems in the army, is there enough done? I think if anybody's in the armies having mental health problems, then I think the welfare should then inform their families so their family can help. Yes, it's private and confidential, but I do think the welfare should then get in touch with family members, a mother, a father, a brother or a sister, and speak to them privately and saying, can you help? Can you take a little bit of burden? Which they don't do that, which is a big mistake, big mistake with the British Army.
Yeah, it can be quite isolationist, but I remember one of our corporals was saying once, the only time really the family come into it, tragically, is when the mother or the father die, and then the guy gets compassionate leave, you know, in our situation. But in many ways, you're cut off. In a way, I'm not making a comparison with prison, but you're cut off and isolated, not really dissimilar to the way it would be in prison, because when you're in the army, you join, shall we say, not a cult, but you're learning techniques that people outside the army don't know, and people respond to that in different ways, and you can become institutionalized, and they can have an adverse effect on behavior. There's no doubt about it. If you were to conclude, you know, for the audience's point of view, what do you think was what happened to Nadine? What do you think actually happened? If they were to be totally transparent without any essence of censorship whatsoever.
Do you think that she took her own life? Is that what you're saying? Do you think?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Right.
No, I don't.
Right.
No, I don't.
So there was never any issue with a like attempting self-harm or cutting the wrists or anything?
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. She'd got a treatment. She'd been signed off by the psychiatrist on the 25th of May. Yet the British Army, her chain of command, it was on her to-do list. She was finished. She was off the vulnerable risk. She was off the DHSM course. Her chain of command, it never got around to telling Nadine that she was off it. So from the 25th of May, she never had a closing down conference. Nadine didn't know that she was off the vulnerable risk management. Yet when we went to the inquest, her chain of command said it was on her to-do list. So from May, June to July, and then they were going on summer leave. So how long was her to-do list to do? 4 months to tell Nadine that she was off the vulnerable risk management course.
So she never found out. She never found out. To add insult,
there is not one text message between her chain and command. There is not one email between her chain and command. There is not one note where she's took her in the office to sit her down and speak to her. There is not one voice note. There is nothing of her chain of command. How do I know this? Because I've got Nadine's phone, got Nadine's email address, I've got Nadine's laptop. It was on her to-do list to tell Nadine that she was coming off it. She never done the shutting down program. Right. So my daughter automatically thought she was still on the vulnerable risk management course.
So sorry. I'm so sorry. It's way too
late. They couldn't just tell her she was off anyway. They were supposed to have
They couldn't just tell her that she was off in anyway. They would have had to take her in to sit down and discuss it. Now, her chain of command at the inquest said she done all this. She said she took her in the office in July, the 6th of July, if my memory serves me right.
No, to ask her how she would feel.
To ask her how she would feel, she would come off it.
Explained
she'd have a hard job. Nadine had already sent a battery commanding officer, a BSM, a message to say she was self-isolating because she'd come in contact with somebody with COVID. So how could her chain of command take her in the office to sit her down and discuss about taking her off the vulnerable risk management course?
So they brought the COVID issue into it as well then? Good grief.
No, Nadine was self-isolating. So when we went to court, a chain of command said she took Nadine in the office to speak to her, to say, how would you feel about coming off the vulnerable risk management course? Well, a chain of command couldn't do that because Nadine was self-isolating in her army room because she'd come in contact with somebody with COVID.
My God, that's so tragic. Because I mean, it had how can we say, such a the residual effects of that lockdown, the residual effects of being isolated, led to. I mean, a friend of mine in America, domestic violence. Even with that horrific case this week of the baby, I wouldn't rule out the fact that isolation, the lockdowns, and that played a part in that, however big or small. When you're locked in, it's not a normal situation. And I'm so sorry to hear that may have played a part as well. So in many ways, the behavioural insights team, the British government, play a part in the demise of Nadine itself, by the sound of it. Sounds more complicated than it is, particularly as you're now bringing in the factor of COVID. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
I used to, because I worked on COVID wards as well. I used to say it like, you cannot come home because our mum is working on COVID wards in the NHS. My partner, our stepdad, was still working right the way through COVID. I said, you cannot come home because we are frightened in case you catch anything and you take it down to your army base and everybody gets it down the army base. So we said to her, do not come home up home from your army bases because I'm working on, and they were bad.
They weren't allowed to travel
on the COVID ward. And we weren't allowed to travel in anywhere, let's be honest. Nobody was allowed to travel in lockdown, was there?
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. I wasn't allowed to be with my dying mother, who I'm convinced that they gave midazolam to, while Johnson was having Partygate and having a good time. That monster then flew out to the Ukraine to prolong war, but I wasn't allowed to be with my mother at the same time as that. So it made me so angry. And so, as I say, sensory deprivation, I didn't talk about this the other week, sensory deprivation in itself becomes a problem. It's also been known as cabin fever. So cabin fever and sensory deprivation may have played a part in it, particularly if you say Nadine had been partly self-harming. Did you ever look at her wrists at all?
No, Nadine wasn't self-harming that way.
She wasn't
Nadine
harming
wasn't
right.
Do you know what? You could do more harm to Nadine with words than you could physically hurt her. If you said something to Nadine really nasty, or really showed Nadine up, or if Nadine told you something privately, and then you shared all that privately with a group of people, Nadine would take that very to heart. She would think a trust's been broken. How can a friend do that?
Right.
She was a very closed book, but once you got into that book and she shared things with you and she trusted you, she classed you as a very good friend and a friend for life.
I say she must be a tough cookie. You know, she went to Afghanistan. She must have been a very, very tough cookie.
She was a tough. Everybody else says she was a tough cookie with a very soft heart. That's what everybody will tell you. A very tough cookie with a very soft heart. Yeah. She was very hard given. I mean, two days before she died, some guy had messaged her and asked for a lend of £300, so he could ex-army, so he could pay his missus £300 maintenance. She went in her overdraft and she drew that £300 out, and she sent a direct debit so he could pay his maintenance and get to see his daughter.
Wow,
so nice.
People don't know this. People don't know this about my daughter.
I have to shoot off, Adam. I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we please pay our respects and to Nadine Askew and have a 1 minute silence before I go, because I'd like to do a 1 minute silence for it and pay my respects. And I can't thank you so much for Amanda for coming on, but I'm going to leave you in the best hands possible.
Okay, then, sweetheart.
But I would like to pay my respects and do 1 minute silence from.
And Darren, I'm still gonna end this at 9:30. Yeah. 9:30.
Yes, mate, that's correct. So 1 minute silence from now, guys, please, in respect for Nadine Askew, please. God may she rest. So, Adam, if we can just stand up. Heads down. Thank you for your service, Nadine, and God rest your soul. Thank you. Adam, if you could take over from here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for expressing. I hope I didn't ask anything too sensitive there, Amanda.
Oh no.
But I think, you know, from the audience's point of view, we're trying to pick up on 5 years of information, and I realise it's a very, very sensitive area, and I hope I didn't ask anything that was too intrusive.
Oh no, I always said I was going to be open and honest. I have nothing to hide, and if we can help another family, then so be it, you know, sort of thing. We have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
So just a quick one, Adam, I'm going to leave you the last 10 minutes with here.
Yeah.
Yourself. I would like you to come back on because I have a list of questions. I've been obviously the show got shut down. If you wouldn't mind coming on again, I have a load of questions to ask you, but they tried shutting us down. Next time they won't. We obviously we've given the go ahead now. So thank you, guys. I'll leave you to it, Adam.
Will do. Yeah.
I'll be in the background.
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Darren. And I say when I was in the early 80s, I say it was mainly men, but we had like a buddy system whereby some of the older guys would really look after us. You know, they was always there for us, and they were like your dad in a way. Some of these older soldiers, you know, looking at men in their 50s, even early 60s. And was there anyone in particular that you remember that was very supportive towards Nadine? A man or woman, one of her sergeants or staff sergeants or corporals?
Do you know what, Adam? I'm going to be honest with you. When Nadine passed and people came to our house from Royal Artillery, whether the army shut them down and said not to say anything to us, we asked questions, and all I got was, I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. So these are supposed to be Nadine's friends coming to our house, and we're asking questions. So we didn't get any answers that way. We didn't. So would you class them as good friends and buddies?
No.
Would you?
Not at all. Not at all.
There you go then.
Yeah.
But what I will say, our old regiment, our old boss, our old friends from Germany reached out. You know, our old Germany friends were very supportive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's something.
So would you class them? Would you class them as buddies? If it was your friend and going to a parent's house, would you class them as friends?
Yeah.
Would you go to a parent's house and not tell them anything?
Not at all. Not at all. I would feel compelled to tell you first opportunity I got the absolute truth. Otherwise, it's obfuscation, basically, isn't it? I mean, if you're not told the truth about that, it's not going to put your mind at rest, and it's going to be haunting you for a long, long time. I'm just so sorry, but I never had any tragedies such as this. We never thought of. There wasn't just such a tragedy of this when I was involved, so I can't really talk about this with a comparison. You know, it just sounds a horrible experience. And
so when I asked certain people and I said, "Do you know anything? Can you tell anything?" "No, I don't know anything. No, I wasn't there. No, I don't know anything." And yet, when I got a phone back, a phone tells a different story. Messages, "Where are you?" Do you know what, Adam? I'm going to be honest with you. She was supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock that morning. She didn't turn up for work. She was supposed to be on parade at 8:30. She didn't turn up for parade. Right? So why did it take them till after 12 o'clock to go and look for her?
Yeah. And with her friends, the ones who were very, very sheepish with you, do you think were they somewhat paranoid about it, or do you think someone had told them not to talk about it, or they'd be punished? Do you think it was something like that, or don't you know?
Well, I think in the army, the closed ranks, don't tell our family anything. Don't tell our family this. Don't tell our family that. Yet, you know, it's a strange world, isn't it? I do believe in karma. I do believe what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
I'm a great believer in karma.
Because I mean,
Really
I've been to coroners quite a few times for suicides, and the coroner, who's a lawyer and also a doctor, wants to know the absolute truth because the relatives are there. The relatives ask me questions, and if you don't give them if you don't come across as reasonable as possible, you can end up in court yourself. You know, it's just a.
Well, all we got when our barrister asked questions was, I can't remember. So our barrister asked the Boncour that night, is it your job to go and look for anybody that hasn't turned up for work on the morning? To the sergeant. The sergeant said, it is the Boncour's job. If nobody's on parade, then the Boncour has to go and look for him. So our barrister said to him, why didn't you go and look for Nadine? Knowing that there'd been an altercation that night, you were on duty. Why did you not go and look for Nadine? When she didn't turn up for work, she didn't turn up for parade, why did you not go and look for Nadine? I can't remember. That was his answer.
And he sent her a text.
But that's not acceptable.
And then he sent her a text at 20 to 3 in the morning.
Asking if she was okay.
Asking if she was okay.
And he didn't get a reply.
Didn't get a reply. My daughter didn't just collapse once, she collapsed twice. Now, people say choking out is just a slang word for strangulation. It states in one of the girls' statement, and you can look this up, Adam. She was red-eyed. She had 2 panic attacks. She had chest pains. She couldn't breathe. She wasn't making any sense. She was zoned out. She didn't know where she was. And you're telling me that's just restrained, Adam?
Sounds like the details still haven't come out, have they? The details haven't come out. Well, not the details.
And he said, the guy that had hold of her, he said he had her hold in a bear hug when she's collapsed, not just once, but twice. She's lying on the ground, but that's what he said. He said he restrained her as a bear hug. And he wouldn't let go of her. Bearing in mind, he'd been in the pub from 2 o'clock on the afternoon, come back from the pub, went to the block party, and was that drunk he couldn't get up for work the following morning. And the Ross was screaming, let her go, let her go. She is not moving. She is not moving. And he still wouldn't let her go.
Good grief. It sounds really unbelievable story. Well, listen, Nadine, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on. And as Darren says, he's got a list of questions. It's one of those stories, tragic stories where the more you know, the less you know, because the more it's like any form of censorship. Censorship stifles creativity, and it stifles the truth from coming out, doesn't it? But thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
Being open with us what happened, and I look forward to seeing you again at some stage. And thank you for is it your husband?
That's great, then, Adam.
Is that your other half with you?
No, that's just me. Malcolm's here, yeah.
Oh, he's here, yeah. Thank you for his input as well, and thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Yes,
Darren,
okay, guys.
You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm so sorry that they tried shutting us down there. I did have a telephone call. It's okay to go ahead. I would like to do this show again and get this done, but this is still being put out there. They have shut us down on Facebook and shut us down on YouTube, but we're back up and running. This is going to be saved anyway. Can't thank you enough.
I wonder why. I wonder why they tried to shut you down. I wonder why.
But we've got very good people, a very strong team behind us, and we are keeping this. We wanted you to tell your story. It's the first time you've been on a show like this to tell your story, and we've got the go-ahead next time without any interruptions. And I do apologise. It's not us. We wanted you to tell a story, and you've been very brave, and you've done very well. And I'm so sorry, guys, for your loss.
Me too. That stands for me as well. I'm sure everyone else in the British Army, all her friends, everyone, we're all with you, Amanda, here. And
she's always remembered. She'll always be remembered. She'll always be looked after. If she's not looked after by me and Mal, she'll be looked after by her 2 brothers. She'll always.
We will always make sure from the Late Night Veteran Show and our team that her legacy will remain. And we will always post about her. We will always be proud of what she's done and served for our country. And we will always.
You know what, Adam? What got to me was the papers. The papers, how they pulled her to bits. Didn't read her work report, which is fabulous.
Well, what we
Pull
can
that
do on
to
the
bits.
next show is we can expose them and tell them what they said, and we'll do the background work, and we will expose their lies.
Yeah, I mean, what's
That
the
would
problem?
look good.
In any true democracy, there should always be freedom to ask questions and give answers. What exactly is their problem? Why all the secrecy? What are they trying to hide? Why? I mean, I'm honest. If I told you I wore a banana on my head, I'd tell you I did it. There's nothing to hide. But what is their problem? What is their problem?
You read a work report, and the last 6 years and beyond that must be promoted. It's doing a job of a WO1. It's doing a job of a WO2. Must be promoted. A pluses, A minuses, and yet 6 years she didn't get promoted.
Wow.
So she wasn't Lance.
And I have that proof.
Right.
She was a bombardier.
Bombardier, right. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
She was a bombardier acting troop sergeant major.
Wow, incredible achievement. What we're going to do, Adam, is we're going to look deeper into this and get it back on the show. You've done really well with your questions, and I'm really impressed.
I hope it was okay. Yeah. Well, I tried to be assertive. You know, and one of the good definitions of being assertive is to be compassionate to myself and to be compassionate to the person I'm talking to without being sensitive.
Honest. And I always said I would be open and honest. We had nothing to hide. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. It'd be fabulous if we were all perfect and we lived in a perfect world. None of us are perfect.
And I suppose, sorry, very quickly, I suppose that you did expect some conclusion to come when you attended coroners, but it didn't.
No, because he didn't read half of the things out. The bruising, the marks on her. You know, the black eye, the bruising on the mouth, the bruising on the arms, the bruising on the legs. She was under the drink driving limit when the papers made it out that she was drunk. She was under the drink driving limit. I'll give you another scenario. The funeral girl that looked after me pulled me to one side and said, I'm making it aware of the certain marks on your daughter because you're bringing your daughter home. And this is a funeral lady that looked after my girl.
It's so sad.
So very sorry, Amanda. What can I say? I'm so sorry.
We gave the coroner this, and the coroner didn't want to know. But yes, I'm willing to come back on. I'm a talker.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll do another show next Saturday. I want to get this out there. I want to do some legwork. I want to get this. I want to expose the lies and the truth from your side. You're her mother, and this should be spoken about. And we're gonna have no interruptions next week because I'm gonna pre-record it and then I'm gonna put it out live as soon as we finish. So there'll be no interruptions.
Good idea.
There is a way around things, so that's why we're gonna do it. Amanda and your partner and
thank you guys. Thank you very much.
So much.
Wherever Nadine is, we're thinking about her with them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, me as well. Malcolm, do you want to come and turn this off, the guys? Right, good night, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks so much.
Good night, guys. Goodbye.
Will do. Yeah, how tragic, Darren. How tragic. And to make things worse, they're not in any way explicit, or it's this word they use all the time, transparent. You know.
Do you know what upsets me is how they tried shutting it down when the mother wanted to speak out, and you know, I just think it's absolutely disgusting. And you know what, this is what the platform's for them to have their story, because it must be devastating for the parents to sit back there. And we all know, Adam, especially me and you, how the media lie. Yeah. Fair play to Amanda for standing her ground and coming on this show and getting to stand up for her daughter, because her daughter doesn't have a voice anymore, and her mother's her daughter. And I'm really, this hits home for me, and I really wish she comes back on next week.
Indeed.
Indeed. So sad, and we're so sorry for a loss. As you know, Adam, we'll always be supportive towards them. There's anything.
Absolutely. I mean, it's stories like that when you realise there's things going on that you don't know. It's a far from ideal situation, and the bureaucrats at top, you know.
I'm just really disappointed with how they tried shutting the show down then.
And my apologies, I thought, is something wrong with my camera or what? I thought, what's going on? And
they tried shutting you down. They kicked me off 3 times. They wouldn't put your camera on, and it's just shocking.
But we won, because we're back on. We're back on.
So. We're back on. We won. Yeah, we're back on. We're fighting.
That, you know, you're
Adam, take it away. Thank you so much. You've been incredible again tonight. I'm going to sit there in the background and leave you to it.
So I was going to talk until about 10, 15, 10. It's not that long talk, and is that okay? And,
all you've got to do when you're finished, Adam, is just shut your screen down and it'll be end.
And end. Okay. So So I may see you again, may not tonight. Yeah. Thank you, Darren.
Okay.
Yeah,
cheers,
well, we'll do. Cheers.
Bye.
What a
Bye.
story. What a horrible story there. And which brings us on to the main subject for tonight, because I was going to talk about psychological manipulation, and which I think we've had our fair share of over the last 5-6 years. And I was going to touch on aspects of psychological manipulation, also bringing in some Orwellian aspects of it. I'll also be using a few of my own observations, as well as the master of understanding of dystopia himself, Mr. George Orwell. In many ways, George Orwell could be described as a behavioural scientist due to his ability to explain the principles behind deception. I think George Orwell was phenomenal. I don't think someone like him isn't born that often. And George Orwell, just a bit on his background, he was born in India, and he came to the UK at 1 year of age, and he changed his name to Orwell because I met his son, whose name is Richard Blair. So George Orwell's original name was Eric Blair, but George Orwell loved that part of Suffolk, border of Suffolk and Essex, which is near Felixstowe and Dovercourt. So he named himself after the Orwell River for some reason. But as I say, he was an expert on psychological manipulation, and politically, George Orwell, I would always describe him not really as an anarchist, but he was more of a sort of libertarian socialist. I'd say he was libertarian socialist because he was a socialist. I think he believed in the Labour Party, but he stood a couple of times as an independent Fabian socialist. I just don't think he enjoyed being with the mob, and that's all. And I mentioned George Orwell because I think he plays a part in the little talk I'm going to give tonight. So a bit about psychological manipulation. Psychological manipulation is a subtle and dishonest form of social influence where someone uses underhand tactics to control another person's thoughts, feelings, or actions for their own personal gain or benefit. There is another term for psychological manipulation, and that could be called the negative use of applied behavioural psychology. I mentioned a bit of that as well. Common techniques include lying, guilt tripping, gaslighting, playing the victim, or even using emotional blackmail. The behaviour exploits a person's vulnerability and can leave the victim feeling powerless and confused. The police do this a lot of the time when they're interviewing someone. I've seen gaslighting them, saying, "Oh, but you were there. You know, you've got to admit that these are gaslighting techniques." So behavioural science, I think, can be better understood with practical examples. In the same way as you could say Isaac Newton explained the principles of gravity by using the example of the apple falling from the tree. When in his garden, I've been to that house in Grantham in Lincolnshire, he explained it was being not falling to earth, but pulling to earth. He explained the principles behind it. So I'm trying here to categorise the principles, we're trying understanding human behaviour with tangible examples. What is often off-putting in understanding psychology is we are not dealing with something concrete. Therefore, I think it's always best to give concrete examples when under explaining psychological techniques. So I'll go through a few of the aspects of it, including Orwellian terms. Infiltration to change, i.e. Trojan horse, is tactical manipulation of circumstances by various means, including change by stealth, i.e., and I appreciate this may be a little bit heavy, but it is psychology after all. I mean, some people would say that psychology doesn't exist. I think psychology does exist, not as something physical, but it explains the principles behind human behaviour. So change by stealth is without anyone's prior knowledge or consent, the ability to move or act in a cautious, quiet, or secretive manner to avoid detection or to carry out an action without being noticed. One thing that Ofcom and the British government have used with all their censorship, which is ongoing at the moment with this so-called Online Safety Act, is legal but harmful. This is used by Ofcom. I phone Ofcom quite regularly. Legal but harmful. You see what they're doing there. They're saying it is legal, but it could still be, it's so subjective, it could be harmful from our point of view. They've dropped that one for the time being anyway. So by using vague terminology, they can make the permits of what they can censor as wide as possible. It's done deliberately, like when they write something in the most complex language imaginable. It's done deliberately to make it as vague as possible so they can implement what they want. Another one is, quote unquote, in your best interests PSYOP. This is a PSYOP, i.e. smiling media personalities. Not all media personalities, because there's one or two good ones, like a friend of mine is the footballer, guide. He was England, Southampton international. It will come to me. So yeah, media personalities, as we saw during the COVID thing, and politicians giving the impression change, quote unquote, is beneficial. Members of a fifth column telling you it's normal, i.e. having fifth columns, and I'll explain what I mean by fifth columns within the British government, the World Economic Forum, the WHO. Another one could be described as, I think it's 77th Brigade, which claims to be a military orientated thing. Again, all of this is brought in without anyone's consent. Members of the fifth column, as I say, telling you it's normal to have fifth columns as integral parts of the government, when in reality the fifth columns are manipulating and driving government policies. The WHO and WEF globalists main example. This isn't democratic and is therefore a ploy to control. They call them NGOs, NGO meaning non-governmental organisation, which in other words is still a fifth column, but they say no, it's a non-governmental, so it's tied to it. In my opinion, it's not democratic. Infiltration labels, i.e. obscure abstract labels, terms deliberately constructed to look beneficial, brackets, again without consent, i.e. net zero, one of Ed Miliband's thing, climate change, and David Cameron used one a few years ago, big society, wide society, again, very, very vague, you never explain what it means there. And Agenda 2030 is a number. Now, Agenda 2030 isn't a conspiracy, it does exist. I mean, I recommend you look at it. Government Agenda 2030 is worth having a look at. And how many remember during the pandemic, or scamdemic, whichever you want to call it, the obscure abstract labels, terms deliberately constructed to look beneficial, again without anyone's consent, net zero, climate change, I mentioned that. And the most perverse one I remember was act till as if you have the virus. I mean, I'll never forget that when it was in a bus in Golders Green. Act till as if you have the virus. I mean, that's got to be perverse psyop, in my opinion. And also, they'll say that was on Double Deck, and they dropped it in the end in the same way as they dropped the term new normal. They stopped using the term new normal, because I think they started using it again recently, because by using the term new normal, people start saying to themselves, well, who's writing the rules here? Who's bringing this in? What do they mean by new normal? There is only one normal, simple as that. And then there was a fear propaganda. We were looking at psyops, creating proper paranoia, blackmail, coercion. A lot of this was to get you to have the jabs. I didn't bring this up when I was talking to Amanda, because her circumstances were quite exceptional. Coercion, claiming to be, again, in your best interests, basically using psychology to achieve their goals. And the British government did use the behavioural insights team, and initially called the nudge unit, to do this. And as I say, applied behavioural psychology to manipulate your behaviour, creating conditions where you will do things out of character, including to your body, basically creating problems superficially that wouldn't otherwise exist, otherwise known as the Hegelian dialect. Hegelian dialect means basically problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialect. So understanding criminal psychology involves reading between the lines, dragging out the contradictions in both behaviour and motive. And in my opinion, working in jail over the years, wherever there's a contradiction and where something doesn't make sense, then there's always a criminal motive there somewhere. Once motives are established, it should be linked in action and behaviour as substantiation. We are dealing with something particularly underhand, and that's the thing about most criminal psychology. Criminal acts are underhand. You only see the criminal act when it's actually finished. So a few more terms that are used. One is passive aggression. Some of you may use the term passive aggression, which in itself sounds contradiction, because how can aggression be passive? But I'll explain what I mean by that. Passive aggression, if I was in a room with you and I kept on saying, sorry, 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 I didn't mean that. In a way, it becomes so irritating that it becomes aggressive, even though what you're saying is in itself passive. That's what I mean by passive aggression. Just to move on there a little bit, we're moving into this. Passive aggression can be behavioural, physical and psychological. Physical, for example, a policeman beating you over the head, shouting, it's in your interest. And we saw this during some of the anti-lockdown demonstrations where I saw the police being very, very brutal to people. But you know what I'm saying? It's in your interest. It's in your interest to be beaten over the head. This is mental illness. This is an inducement of mental illness, in my opinion. So that's the physical aspect. Verbal, I used to say, I'll just give an example of that. Repetition in a sentence that is basically antagonistic, yet seemingly innocent and inoffensive, such as sorry, sorry, sorry. This is some of the people that use these have personality disorders. Nomenclature or semantic manipulation. Nomenclature is basically language which is used in science to explain certain principles. So semantic manipulation, i.e. the expansion of powerful words, e.g. terrorist, to include behaviour where the word doesn't actually apply. Now, when I was in the army, I mean, a terrorist was someone who was in the IRA, who'd put a bomb under your car. That was a terrorist. And we've seen the new definition of terrorist, most recently expanding to ban organisations. I won't mention the organisations. Terrible, I can't do that. Again, abusing the reality or meaning of public interest. Again, it's in the public interest. The public interest is, if you notice, the government are using a lot of generic terms. Public interest, it's in your interest. So that if you phone up Ofcom, if you speak to Ofcom, they can't, even if you put it in writing to Ofcom, which is basically the people that are implementing the Online Safety Act, they can't explain to you what they mean by harm, even though they use harm in every paragraph. So trust in academia to a point. This is another aspect. So we trust in academia to a point of religiosity. For example, the former nurse tutor John Campbell, who's got a PhD in nursing, John Campbell, is now somewhat remorseful since having 3 of those COVID jabs. Whether he's getting ill or not, I'm not too sure. Then we're moving on to abusive position, i.e. justifying one's actions due to one's academic bona fides. This involves pomposity, incorporating class and status, inheritance, nepotism, that's within the family, and connections. One hesitates to use the words mafia. So putting all these aspects together sums up state control, otherwise known as a police state. And it's easy to see how people can't really understand this, because it is complex. Understanding psychology and understanding criminology is not an easy subject. So I mentioned a few words used by the great man himself, George Orwell, in 1984. And say 1984, the book or the movie, whichever you've seen, introduced a now iconic dystopian vocabulary designed to limit thought, primarily through a George Orwellian term, newspeak, which is basically the state language. You can only use the state language. George Orwell used this in Oceania, which was basically where 1984 took place. Key terms. We use a lot of these in everyday vernacular these days, include Big Brother, which is a very, very big term. Big Brother, what you may remember, the Big Brother house, which was on TV a few years ago. Doublethink, which is basically holding contradictory beliefs. So George Orwell really was a true genius in highlighting, labeling all these different forms of dystopia. So I say doublethink is holding contradictory beliefs. Thought crime. This is common these days. Illegal thoughts, misinformation, disinformation. You can't think what you want to think of disinformation. It has to be what the state tells you is disinformation. I know it's perverse, but it's what they're using, and it has worked with a lot of people. Not as many as they want, I don't think. So there's thought crime. Another one from unperson, which is executed, erased individuals, those poor devils you never hear again. And then you've also got thought police and proles. And these are key 1984 vocabulary and definition. Newspeak, as I say, I'll reiterate, go over that again. Newspeak is the official language in 1984 of Oceania, designed purely to restrict thought. Doublethink is the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously, often done to confuse. Thought crime, as a thinking, acting or speaking against the party's ideology. And if you remember in 1984, they weren't happy with Vincent until he loved Big Brother, even though they put rats on his head, doing horrible things. He had to love Big Brother. They weren't. George Orwell saw this coming decades ago. Incredible. I don't think he saw it coming in quite the way they've done it. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But I think nonetheless, he knew it was coming. So yeah, thought crime is thinking or acting against the party's ideology. And then there's the great one. You've got an organisation in this country, a civil liberties organisation called Big Brother Watch. And this is the all-seeing, the Orwellian phrase means the all-seeing totalitarian leader of the party. And I think we just got rid of one this week in the name of Keir Starmer, whose personality, I think, really went along with his ideology. I mean, you talk about Adolf Hitler talking, you talk about other dictators, Idi Amin, but Starmer looked what he was. And I think that played a big role in getting rid of him and the reason people hated him, basically. I mean, what was there to like? Even though he was very big, like a lot of egotists, like a lot of psychopaths, he felt sorry for himself at the end, didn't he, when he left Downing Street? So I'll just go through a few more of the Orwellian terms. We're nearly done. Unperson, a person who's been vaporized, removed from existence, records and memory. Thought police in 19... This was known as ThinkPol, which is the secret police responsible for detecting thought crime. And we've had a lot of this in the UK recently where you tweet. I mean, for saying the spoken word, you've had the police knock on your door. People have been imprisoned for thought crime. That's how bad it is. We're coming up to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There's a new movie out next month called Young Washington. But they got it right, really, because they protected free speech by law. And I think that is the hallmark of every democracy. The free speech should be protected by law. You should be able to say what you want, when you want, to whom you want. Prole in 1984, this is otherwise known as the proletariat, i.e. the working class majority of the population kept in poverty. Vaporized, executed by the state in arrangements from history. Another one, double-plugged good, newspeak term for extremely good. Notice a lot of these terms are very, very value loaded, like good, bad. And the trouble is being value loaded. Good is only good until something better comes along. That's why I never really use the term good and bad. Joy Camp in 1984 was forced labour camps. Sex crime, and any unauthorised sexual acts, e.g. for pleasure. They even thought about that as well. Own life, the tendency to enjoy being alone, considered antisocial or subversive. So they weren't even allowed to be alone, because when you're alone, you gather your thoughts together and you're able to reflect on things. They didn't even like that. Mini-Pax, which is the Ministry of Peace, in charge of war. So there's another Orwellian contradiction there. You notice a lot of Orwellian terminology is basically contradictory. The Ministry of Peace is actually in charge of war. In other words, what the government is telling you is the opposite to what is happening. Mini Plenty, this is the Ministry of Plenty in charge of economic shortages. And if you look at if you read the Great Reset or the Klaus Schwab's other book, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, a lot of it is the total dismantleization of society. Those are his words, not mine. Mini True, this is a Ministry of Truth responsible for propaganda and falsifying history. Mini Love, this is the Ministry of Love, even thought that responsible for torture and indoctrination. That was called the Ministry of Love. Key structural ideological terms. Orwellian, now this is a very common one. In other words, the adjective describing a totalitarian, oppressive or surveillance-heavy society. And we're not a million miles away from that, or we're heading in that direction in the UK unless people wake up. INSOC, which is English Socialism, the political ideology of Oceania. Oceania was the state in which 1984 took place. 2 minutes hate, daily mandated public demonstrations of hatred for enemies of the state. You know, if you remember 1984, they actually did that. And then you got memory hole, which is a chute used to destroy documents, erasing them from history. So you imagine in 1984, censorship played a massive part in it. And as it stands today, basically, the way I see it, the British government are trying to shut down all forms of communication other than what they allow, which is this. It's got nothing to do with porn. I mean, you're going to tell me that someone who's having sex education classes at 11 years of age or 12 years of age isn't going to become interested in his own body? Of course they are. It's natural. Face crime, which is an improper facial expression suggesting one is hiding something. Now, this, the closest I come to this is a Big Brother Watch campaign against this Metropolitan Police live facial recognition, where there's been a couple of people suing the police because they've got it wrong. You know, they're looking. I can understand it where they're looking for people that commit crime, but it's being used to terrorise people. You're photographed everywhere in the UK the moment you leave your house. Old Speak, this is standard English in 1984, which the party aimed to replace. Good Think is an example where they're thinking in accordance with the party doctrine. We've got that in today, which is hopefully this will wane off if new political parties come into play. Good Sex, which is sexual intercourse strictly for the purpose of producing children for the party. How exciting. Common prefixes, suffix in Newspeak. Unnegotiation, e.g. ungood for bad. Plus emphasize, this is getting a bit technical, I think I'll leave some of this. Double plus extreme emphasis. As I say, Orwell really went into it in a big way. So I'll try and come to a conclusion here. Would you know, talking about some of the terms in 1984, Newspeak explained examples and quotes, and as I say, you can go online, you can read more about this in Study Finder. Some of the frequently asked questions about Newspeak is what it is in 1984, and Newspeak being the fictional language which it became. Yeah, there's also on Wikipedia, there's some good bits on Newspeak as well. And also there's a good word glossary on Newspeak, i.e. good sex is sex crime, good sex in any form of sex considered acceptable to the party, especially if it refers to married heterosexuals. And I think I'll come to a conclusion there. So yeah, thank God for George Orwell, because in a way it was a warning, as they say. It wasn't just a story, it was a warning of what can happen. If you want to read further on this, I recommend reading Wise Vocabulary and Word List from George Orwell's classics. You can get a copy of 1984. You can see the movie. The movie was actually Richard Burton's last film. Great film with John Hurt. And there's also George Orwell's Thesaurus, which is got all this in. And I think I'll come to a conclusion there. Just to sum up, I hope that made some sense. To say it's not an easy subject. It's like explaining, using words to explain words. There's an American psychologist called Stuart Chase who wrote a book called The Tyranny of Words, and he wrote a second book called The Power of Words, and he admitted in that words in themselves are meaningless, but it's the reference you put to the words. And but it's never easy to explain semantics. So I say just a bit about the British government's behavioural insights team. It was known as the Nudge Unit, which was established by the UK government in 2010. So it's not a conspiracy. For those out there who are saying it's a conspiracy, it's not. To be used with applied behavioural science to public policy, as I say, to get you to do things you wouldn't normally do. While originally part of the Cabinet Office, it became an independent social purpose company in 2014, jointly owned by the Cabinet Office, Nesta and its employees, but still closely works with the government. Piers Corbyn and some of the others actually did a few demos outside the Behavioural Insights team in the early hours of Scamdemic, and they weren't happy about that. As I say, the Behavioural Insights team purpose, it aims to find innovative, cost-effective ways to encourage people to make better choices for themselves and society. So they use the word there again, better, e.g. health, tax and crime prevention. So you notice they cover these things with potentially good things. methods. The team uses techniques like the East framework, making interventions easy, attractive, social and timely. And Origin, as I say, it was created by David Cameron's government and inspired by the book Nudge. So there you have it, and I think I will just end there. So as I say, it's not an easy subject to, but it is an essential one. Yeah, and I think I'll call it a day there for today because I think it's a bit of heavy, and we've all got so, and it's very, very hot as well. So we've only got so much great matter. So I hope you at least enjoyed that. I hope if it's some made sense, but it's a good idea to go and look at 1984 because, as I say, in many, many ways, it was a precursor, I think, for what's happening today. And George Washington, I'm looking forward to seeing that movie when it comes out next month. I think it's going to be on the 4th of July. George Washington and the founding English fathers, because they were all English, the founding fathers, Tom Paine, Jefferson, Johnson, Adams, they're all English. So really America was born out of English liberal thinking. And I'm looking forward to seeing young Washington because it'd be interesting now to see how they portray the British Army in that film, because the last one I saw was Mel Gibson's The Patriot. And in that, Mel Gibson, he accused the British Army of putting the Americans in a big barn and burn them alive. I mean, whether there's any evidence of that happening, I'm not too sure. But as I say, so Washington's men, they weren't just brilliant soldiers, because they had something like 19,000 soldiers against Britain's minimum 40,000 soldiers. They took on the most powerful fighting force in the world, but it was all for good reason today. That's why in America today, God bless America, God bless the Statue of Liberty, you can still say what you want without being jailed, and long may that last. That's in statute in America. It cannot do it. And I think over the next couple of months, maybe we should do a little talk on the, particularly after seeing the movie Young Washington when it comes out. I'll do a talk on the American Revolutionary War, because from what I know, we say it was Britain's Vietnam because we lost thousands of men in that war. A lot of them are buried without names. If you go to Connecticut and New England and New York, there's a lot of mass graves there with gravestones saying unknown British soldier wounded in battle. I think some of the others came back with their wives, but he went on for 9.5, nearly 10 years. So it's incredible. So I recommend that on your watch list, Young Washington, which comes out next month. Be interesting to see. So yeah, great night. What a tragic story we had to begin with Amanda's story about her tragic daughter's life, which she should have gone further in the army, but she didn't, and it ended in such a tragedy. These things are never easy. So hopefully the Late Night Veteran show can help her in many ways, on many, many levels. So thanks again. Do please keep up your hydration levels, because I think this heat wave hasn't gone away yet. Do keep up your hydration levels, and take water with you wherever you go, because as I say, there was a tragedy a few years ago where some guys died and they were begging for water, and it must have been a terrible death. Keep the fluids up, and I'll end there. Have a good week. Bye for now.